This is not what I'm seeing right now. This is like fucking weird, bro. Oh. I'm gonna let a few people join in. I don't know. Imagine. All right. Well, it is 3 o'clock. Hello, hello. How are you? Welcome back to Live Trials by EAC with yours truly. We are running right now a live feed. How are you guys? I hope everybody is doing splendid. Thank you again for joining me on this beautiful, lovely Sunday afternoon here on the East Coast of Florida. Right here in Davie, it is 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 3:05, 3 o'clock. It is time. It is time to get it started. All right, yeah, that's why I don't sing. If you would like to support this podcast, please visit elizabethcharnay.com. It is scrolling on the bottom of your screen. And please, please, please subscribe to all the platforms hosting this podcast. And it is crucial for you guys to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is critical for my growth. If not, I will never grow on YouTube. So help me out, please, por favor de Dios. This is going to be a less, I guess, just very off the cuff type of episode here today, because I will be discussing, and I wanted to bring to you guys a very special series of episodes I will be doing. And today is the first part. So part 1. And this will be done in a 2-series part. So welcome to part 1. As I'm very excited to have you guys here on my podcast live on Live Trials by EAC with yours truly. Once again, I'm just very grateful to have you guys here. Look at my phone is super loud. So I'm just letting some people join in. Please, I hope you guys were paying attention to my Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. just to give you kind of like a summary as to what I will be discussing today. As I had just mentioned, I started a new series on my YouTube channel called Life Trials, where I will be discussing more specifically in this specific series the last decade of my life, where I will be breaking this up into two separate parts. I will begin with my introduction, my upbringing, my academic success, law school, relationships, being with two people at the same time, very personal experiences, and the drama, especially over the last 12 months, that everybody's been dying to, further understand. And there has been so much that I've been holding back on. And that's done now. That's over. The betrayal, the lies, the deception, the craziness that I've had to endure the last year, especially. Not to say that the last decade of my life has been the best. It has not. There's been a lot of adversity that I've had to face in my life, a lot of obstacles that I've had to, climb and fight my way to the top. And, I really believe that Netflix will be calling me after this for sure, because I have a lot to say, a lot of truth to my claims, my statements, and my story that I have here for you guys. So I never really have discussed on a more personal level who I am, where I come from, what I'm about. And that was something that I felt I needed to kind of relay to you guys. Because even though soy una balsera, the way I speak, I'm very Cuban. When I was in Kentucky, they thought they were so fascinated by me, So I look American, but I speak Spanish. They're like, huh? That was the best. So I first wanted to start, even though this obviously does not encompass the last decade of my life, I do want to discuss my cultural background and where I was born and all that stuff. So I was actually born in Long Island, New York, out in Oceanside. I don't know much about Oceanside, New York. I left there when I was about 4 years old and have been residing in South Florida ever since. Majority of my life, I have been in Miami-Dade County, and it wasn't until I left to Hillsborough County to Tampa in the end of 2016, right after the presidential election. And I spent a year in Tampa, then came back. And then I decided not to go back to Miami-Dade County, and now I reside in Broward County here in the amazing township of Davie. I love it here so much. Honestly, I really love it here. I'm just more of a, country girl at heart, I guess, even though I was raised in the city. I am American. Obviously, I was born in the US of A. I am Cuban and Irish. My mother and her side of the family are directly from Cuba, and my father's side of his family, they're Irish, American, gringo, Jewish. So, I already, had a very bizarre upbringing where, obviously my father's side of the family practiced Judaism, and then my mother's side of her family, was Catholic, and they would love to go to La Iglesia. And it was always strange, but hey, I'm very grateful for that, I guess, understanding of the two religions and stuff. Do I practice either or? Not really. I'm more spiritual, more intuitive in the sense of my energies and that of others, but I do believe there is a higher calling, there is a higher authority than thyself. I definitely have understood my faith more than ever before in the last 12 months. I really believe that because of my upbringing and my cultural background, that has allowed for me to be able to face adversity and overcome certain obstacles in my life. It's difficult. It's difficult because I come from a very middle class family. My grandparents came here right after the Castro regime seized all property, assets, everything that they owned. They had to leave behind. They literally built a raft from palm trees. And this story really resides in my heart forever. I miss my grandfather. He passed away 3 years ago. And let me tell you something, that man loved this country. He loved America. And he really put country before thyself, And they built a raft out of palm trees. And my grandfather had sewed $100 to his pants. Well, my grandmother says she did that. And then they sailed for fucking America. And luckily, they were able to reach the shores of Miami Beach. And hopefully I can have my grandma on one day so she can tell you guys a story about that directly. But they left the dictatorship for the land of the free. And ever since then, they arrived in Miami. Then they moved up to New York and had, they started their life. They really became very well culturally diverse, really embedded themselves in the American traditions. I mean, when I look at a lot of my family pictures and stuff, like from back when my mom was a child, I mean, you could really see how they adapted to the culture, the American culture. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see. And, that's really where I got my passion and my love of politics from, was really from my grandfather. He always, watching the news, very well versed man, and really, really kept himself, up to date with our current affairs. And I just not sure really, because a lot of people always ask me, like, why am I so obsessed with politics? Why am I so in love with the environment, a very toxic environment? But I mean, it's just my passion in my life. And I mean, if you know me, once I'm done with law school, I plan on moving up to DC. That's where I'm going to get licensed. And I really don't even plan on litigating a day in my life. I really want to get into more of the political consulting aspect of politics. And, acquiring my Juris Doctorate is just another check, to check that off the list of things that I need to accomplish and finish. I started that about 3 years ago, and now I'm on my way to finishing that. So it's very exciting. So to kind of go into my childhood and, growing up and stuff like that, and how that pertains to the last decade of my life is extremely critical. So, as I had previously mentioned, so I grew up in a very middle class family, not really rich, but, they had their job, their 9 to 5, and they lived, very mediocre, whatever. They were able to provide for their family. We had a home over our heads, roof over our heads, food on the table. I had 2 parents up until middle school when they got divorced. And then my father has really been an absent player since then, really. My grandfather has always and had always been a great role model, father figure for me and my sister. I think they did a fantastic job. I did stay in touch with my dad till I was about 18 or something, and that was the last time I really heard from him. I don't have really father issues in that sense, because my grandfather did step in and was able to provide that type of assistance to my mother. So me and my sister really did not grow up with any type of daddy issues. We've had prosperous relationships. And, there's a lot of things that you face in life, but that's not a reflection of that type of absence in a child's life, My mother was technically a single parent. She did, she is now on her way to being married again, finally. And she did the best that she could. And I love my mother, and I think my parents are just who they are, and that's it, I really never believed that a Cuban and an Irish person should have been together, because anytime I tell people that I'm Cuban Irish, they look at me like, what the fuck? You must be fucking nuts. And it's kind of like, but why? And obviously through experiences and stuff, you kind of see what people mean. So high school was super dope. I went to Southwest, and then I did my first 3 years there. Of course, I don't know if everyone, if you're old enough, I'm 29. So back then there was the whole you can put someone else's address, whatever, and go to another school and you're good, whatever. So I was in the magnet program at Southwest, the business program. And then they ended up finding out my senior year that wasn't my address, so they kind of like kicked me out of the the magnet program. And I had to go to Killian, which I was so grateful for, because honestly, Killian was more of a very traditional high school, except like Southwest was not, like, it didn't have, that traditional aspect of high school where you had the jocks, the cheerleaders, the losers, the this. Everybody was just all lumped in together, but it wasn't like that in Killian. Killian was a lot more traditional. And I went to prom. I loved prom. I'll never forget prom with Brandon. I don't know where the fuck, whatever happened to him, but it was just an amazing experience. I really, really, really kind of really appreciated prom. And up until this day, I still wear Cheryl Hill. I don't know if you know who Cheryl Hill is, but those are those like amazing gowns and all that shit. Oh my God, they've done such an amazing job. You look at it where they are today. Oh my God. So, not that much, kind of chaos in my upbringing. My parents, my family, they did the best that they could for me and my sister up until we were 18, and they're like, peace. So then I went off to college in 2010. I first did my associates in criminal justice at Miami-Dade College. I did 2 years there. And then I went over to Florida International University, FIU. Everybody remembers where that horrifying bridge collapse happened. That's where I went to undergraduate school. And it's crazy because when I was in school there, people were crossing that street and getting killed, run over. It was just a mess. And then they built the bridge, collapsed, and they haven't done anything since. It's welcome to Miami, And at FIU is where I really started to have the understanding and really becoming more of an expert in the field of politics. This is where my love and passion for politics just grew enormously, was at FIU. I had a lot of indoctrinating professors. I was at the cuff where the indoctrination shit started to happen in the universities. So it was really intense. Like, I had a professor that hated men, and she was just a horrible professor, but she was extremely, extremely liberal to that point where she thought that men's existence is almost non-existent. It was just so bizarre. She hated them anytime they ever asked a question and any of that stuff. It was just so weird. I was so happy, though, in college. I would say it took me in total 5 years to complete my bachelor's, because I did a minor in international relations, and then I obviously got my bachelor's of arts in political science. And it was during my senior year, I could say, when I started a relationship with an individual. And it was just so weird because when I started that relationship with a guy that was the same age as me is when I met my ex of 7 years. So I would say the first 5 years of my 20s, I was extremely narcissistic, selfish, self-centered, and all I thought about was myself. And I didn't understand what it was to have the ability of understanding how other people feel. It's almost like I didn't care. It was all about myself, which is, you live and you learn and you pay for what you do in this life. That is a fact. So I would say towards the end of my junior year into my senior year of college is when I started a relationship with an individual who was the same age as me. And then about 4 months later, I met my ex that I entered into a 7-year relationship with. So I would say for about 2.5 years, I was maintaining 2 relationships at the same time. Why did I do that? I don't know. I was, between the ages of 22 and 24. I didn't give a fuck. I was living in South Florida, living my highest life, being with, one guy who was giving me the love and the affection that I, wanted and needed and all that stuff. It was more like on that consistent basis every single day and all that stuff. And then I had, my ex, my recent ex of 7 years, who, when we started our relationship, it really wasn't a very serious relationship in the beginning, I would say. Because I obviously was trying to maintain 2 relationships at the same time. Wasn't the ideal thing to do, but, I thought, I was like, oh, fuck it, whatever I could be a boss bitch and, juggle 2 people at the same time, which obviously was never the ideal thing to do, was never a good thing to do. It was a very nasty thing that I did. And I did pay for that. Like, karma came around to me and I paid for what I did and whatever, However, everything catches up to you and shit. But, I was living the highest life, bro. I had fucking been in college, getting everything I wanted. I was fucking Dean's List student for my entire last 2 years of college. I mean, I was just loving it. I had great friends. This is where I then went on a trip to DC in October of 2014, and I'm telling you that I fell in love with DC. That was the first time I had ever been to DC, and I went with the law fraternity that I was a brother sister in, Phi Alpha Delta. They took us into the Capitol. We did a lot of like those events and stuff, like when you go to DC, you go to all these museums, the White House and everything. It was the best experience of my entire life. This is where it was engraved in me during this trip that politics was where my life was going to go. And the friendships that I established with these people have been lifelong. A lot of them are attorneys now. A lot of them are in their field of work. I'm very, very proud of a lot of my friends, a lot of things that they've accomplished. And obviously at this time as well, I was still maintaining both relationships. And whatever, right? It was about, I would say, 3 months before I was about to graduate from college. That was around April of 2015. I was obviously having sexual relations with both of them at the same time. And I was an idiot, and I've up until this day, I'm 29 years old. I've never taken birth control my entire life. I don't know. I guess the pullout game has just been very strong for me since I started fucking and shit. But man, it's a lot of cheese. So, I continued on into these relationships into the new year, whatever, 2015, whatever. And I was obviously I had sex with not somebody, but with my ex. And I'm going to distinguish them. So I'll say ex and then previous ex. Previous ex was the one that I just terminated our 7-year relationship. And then the ex is from almost 6 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long, 5 years, whatever. So I ended up having sex with him, unprotected sex. We always had unprotected sex, but he would always pull out. Like, that was our thing. He would just pull out, and he ended up not pulling out, and I got pregnant, and I didn't even fucking know it. It wasn't until I went to the gynecologist at the end of April where they were like, yo, do you know that you're pregnant, by the way? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I have never shared that piece of information about me in my life. I have never shared that with anybody. So, yeah, that happened. And unfortunately, I was very young at that time. I was 23 years old. I was literally 3 months away from graduating from college, going into studying for the LSAT, and then leaving to law school. So obviously my plans were nowhere near in any capacity wanting to have a child. So unfortunately, my ex at that time wanted me to literally keep the baby and just send it over to his mother in Colombia. And I was like, what the fuck? Are you crazy or something? Like, that's your plan on having a child? I ended up having the abortion pill. I took that and obviously terminated that pregnancy because I was 23 years old. I didn't know better. I didn't know what the fuck my life was going to be with the child. And I mean, my ex was very upset at that time. He wanted to have the child so desperately. And I just really, that was kind of the turning point in our relationship where I started to realize that that person really wanted to have full blown control over my life. It was so fucking crazy. So, whatever. We ended up then going to Colombia over the summer and all that stuff. And, you know, trying to obviously maintain, you know, as I continued maintaining both relationships, right? Right after college into the summer of 2015, all that stuff. It wasn't until I then started studying for the LSAT. I would say right after the summer I graduated from college, I started studying for the LSAT. It took me about a year and a half. As I had just stated, continuing both relationships at the same time. So it wasn't until about election time 2016 when I ended up hooking up with a third person. I obviously was just like, I don't know where my mind was at that time, to be honest with you. I was obviously very unhappy in my relationships, but instead of doing the right thing and terminating them, I decided to, you know, try to not hurt other people's feelings and remain in those two relationships. But then I ended up like just having like a side thing with somebody. So that was not good, right? So it wasn't until around election time where I was at my place smoking, whatever, you know, getting ready because I had gotten accepted into a law school in Tampa. And after about a year and a half studying for the LSAT, I got accepted into a law school in Tampa. So I was going to leave in January. I was leaving at the end of December of 2016 to Tampa, moving my whole life, everything I've ever known, getting up, going and moving. So obviously I didn't give a fuck about what was going on with everybody else and their feelings, because I was going to get up and get the fuck out. So, you know, selfishly, I was in that state of mind at that time, you know. So obviously I had fucking Jose, the one that I was, you know, fucking around with, then Daniel, my ex, and then William was there in the back of the bus. So, you know, I was a bad girl. So that evening that I was smoking at my house with that third person was when then Daniel came in. Oh my God, this situation was so crazy. So listen to this because this hasn't even been spelled out either. So he had the key to my place and that William was paying for. Mind you, this is all this shit that I was doing, right? I didn't give a fuck, obviously, at that time, you know. So I thank God I left. So Daniel walks in, sees me just smoking with another guy, right? You know what he does, bro? Instead of like grabbing his gun, he goes to my bedroom because he knew where my gun was, grabs my gun. That's when I was like, yo, like, you're fucking pussy ass bitch and we're fucking done. And like stood in front of me and was telling the guy to get out of my house that I paid whatever that the other one paying for and everything. So it was just so crazy. And then he ended up calling the police like a dumb bitch that he was, right? Calling the police on himself, I guess, because I don't know what happened there. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what the fuck? Like, you walked into my house, grabbed my gun, and you're pointing it at him. And I was like, oh my God. I thought, thank God that he knew he had a lot to lose at that time, because imagine, I probably wouldn't have been here today. However, all of that just turned into a bunch of blob of nothing. I told that guy, the third party, to just dissipate. So he left. And then I had to deal with Daniel, wait for the police, and, you know, just tell the police that there was this misunderstanding and all this stuff and whatever. So obviously that night, everything terminated with Mr. Daniel. And after 2.5 years of being with him, that was the termination there. Then Donald Trump gets elected as president of the United States of America. I'm telling you guys, I was super bad at that time. And Oops. I ended up about a month later, I got up and left to Tampa to law school. So I ran off to law school in Tampa because obviously I had all this craziness going on in my life, and I just wanted to get the fuck away from everybody and everything, and like everything that had gone on in South Florida. I was like, fuck this shit, fuck you guys, I'm gone, I'm done. Once I'm done with law school, I'm gonna go move to DC and fuck everybody. Obviously my plans didn't turn out to be the way that I had planned them. I did a year of law school. I loved it. I just didn't like the curriculum at that specific law school, and I didn't know at that time that law school is a business. Sorry. So at that time, I learned that law school is a business, and you really need to understand where you're going to school, why you want to go to that school, and assure that they have the externships that you want, all that stuff. No, I was just desperate to get the fuck out of South Florida because of, obviously all the things that I was up to. So, you know. And unfortunately, at that time, I was just with my recent ex. Obviously, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, because little do we know is when I left to law school is when he started his little relationship with the woman that he left me for last year. That's the same age as my mother. That's when he started that relationship with that woman. Instead of just telling me, hey, listen, bro, you left to Tampa, it's over. The script was reversed. So whatever. I was obviously doing my year in law school and all that shit, and learned a lot. I became a completely different person that year. I became just a different person, and I'm forever grateful for leaving out of here, doing the year of law school, and really understanding where I stand as a human being, and the things that I needed to accomplish, and the things that I needed to stay away from, and how to behave, and how to be more of an ethical, integral person. And that's who I am today. I became just an overall, I did a 360 being away. I also got a little chunky, but whatever. Unfortunately, I would say the last 4 months of my time in Tampa, I was manipulated and convinced that if I didn't come back to South Florida, I was no longer going to be able to maintain this so-called lifestyle that I had. The little shit that I had that, he was paying for and stuff. And really, really convinced me to withdraw and just, come back to South Florida, and then eventually, transfer to the school of, that I wanted to, all that stuff, whatever. So then, I leave Tampa. Thankfully, I did leave for other reasons as well, because my grandfather got sick. So I moved back to South Florida in 2018, and that's when I really started to realize what the fuck was going on in my current relationship with my recent ex. This is where I really started to get a better understanding of who the fuck I was really with, right? And he hated me when I came back. He was so upset. Like, he was just so angry by the way that I looked. Like, he was so angry about it. And it was so disheartening, because instead of trying to work that out with me and trying to make me a better person, all he did was put me down and make it seem like I was the fucking problem and everything like that, And, unfortunately, being with a malignant narcissist, you kind of feel very obligated to adhere to their life and adhere to so many insane things that he requested. Like, one of the first things I did when I got back in 2018 was get bigger tits, because if I didn't get bigger tits with Dr. Hochstein, that ended up causing me to have capsular contracture. I had 4 fucking surgeries. He needed me to have all these surgeries so that I can have the perfect titties. Finally, I was able to achieve the perfect set of tits last year, but this dilemma started in 2018. And, you know, being with a master manipulator, it was difficult. It was very difficult because I had to do what he said, because if not, my life would have been destroyed and ruined. So I complied, submitted, and started to really do a 360 with my body and really focusing on my relationship, because obviously it was in peril. It was being diminished into nothing, and I obviously needed to work on that. So obviously I was with a person that had no understanding of how to communicate with other people and really, you know, form a good consensus as to the needs and the wants of that given person, right? Unfortunately, you know, that wasn't the case here. He was it was just a whole like malfeasance on its face being with that person. The year of 2018 was a really like hard year for me, because he had left to Italy at the end of the year and didn't take me, but because he was with the old lady. And it's sad too, because that's when I had started getting the idea of the whole modeling stuff. I was starting to do fillers and all that shit or whatever. And instead of him being a good partner, he was just being the malignant trash that he really is, and just, you know, frauding the world. Because this individual that I was, you know, with for now, I mean, not now, but the total of 7 years, he really isn't who he proclaims and projects to be. He's a millionaire because he's a beneficiary of a multi-billion-dollar corporation that his family started. He's done and accomplished and created absolutely nothing. 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 Nada. Nothing. So obviously being with somebody like that who, you know, really has absolutely nothing for themselves but just their benefits of being a beneficiary child, you know? It's really sad, bro. It's sad. Like, that guy is such a sad person, bro. But I'm so happy that, like, we broke up last year, because he never deserved somebody like me. Like, he deserves to be with the trash that he is with now. Not with me. Like, I was too good for that ugly, despicable person, inside and out, you know? And it's really crazy. Like, it wasn't till 2018 is when I started to realize who the fuck this person really was, you know? And what they were doing, how they conducted business and stuff like that. You know, I went to a lot of political events with him. And mind you, like, these are very important, you know, meetings, situations, circumstances. And this man, right, is literally bringing multiple women to these events. So it wasn't just with me he was showing up with. It was La Peli Negra, India. Oh my God. So sorry. So sorry for those two people. Like, so disgusting. Mind you, like, she knew everything about me. And she stayed with him. Why? Because she's old, she has no career, and the money. I just can't. Like, I wish I could make this shit up, bro. But, like, this shit is, like, ¿verdad que está de pinga, bro? So, you're sitting there like, okay. Like, at that time, it was, like, December of 2018. And I'm like, damn, like, things are just going really bad between us. And he had traveled to Italy with the racing team and all that stuff, knowing that I'm like starting the modeling stuff and everything. And didn't take me. Whatever, right? Rolls around, I would say February of 2019. I move into the place that I'm at today. That same day, which was on Valentine's Day of 2019, he was helping me move into my house, to then going on a date with another woman at nighttime. Mind you, it wasn't the Peli Negra, it wasn't me, it was another bitch, right? That's how disgusting this person is. This person is such an insecure, like small-minded, small penis, everything. Because oh my gosh, it was so bad. Even that will be discussing in part 2, the sex with that person, because it's very detailed that I have to like do in a specific manner, so then you guys can really get a good grasp of what that was sexually. So that happens. I don't know nothing that's going on, right? It wasn't till that time when I started to really pick up on the modeling. I was really going ham and really starting that career during that time. Mind you, he's having 2 full-blown relationships at the same time, taking care of not just me, but taking care of a woman in her late 40s with her 2 adult children, 2 other losers, so total 3 people over there, Iyagi, right? And me not knowing nothing that's going on, right? Mind you, this is a grown-ass man in his fucking 50s behaving like this. When I did this shit, I was fucking 22 years old behaving like that. And I easily was able to understand the consequences of my actions. I took accountability for my actions and moved forward from those actions. So that's why a lot of people will then try to bring up, oh, well, you were fucking, in other relationships, whatever. All this stuff. And, it's funny because you sit there and say, what the fuck? This is crazy. I'm actually looking at some of your comments right now. I don't know who John G is. I love you, Kendall. You're so funny. And whoever John G is, I don't know what you're saying, but I don't really care. However, to continue on here. So going into like my modeling career and all that stuff, it was fairly hard because I was thrown into the fire and I had to figure out things for myself. This was, it was hard. It was very hard. And, I think that you live and you face the consequences of your actions, I think that a lot of people don't understand how difficult it was to get into that new field of work. And I really, really believe that the obstacles that I faced and how I overcame such adversity has allowed for me to get to where I am today. And because of my previous actions, the things that I've done, how I've taken accountability and moved forward from that has allowed for me to be a more well-rounded person, regardless of whatever people say, how they feel. At the end of the day, like, that doesn't matter and it'll never matter. Like, and the modeling career really took off in the summer of 2019. And it really helped me be a more concise woman and understand the needs of my partner. It wasn't till, I would say, when I came back from law school, I really had an understanding of like how to be more principled and have, attainable values in my life. And I just really think that it made me into a better person. Regardless of the things that I did in my past, it has no projection on my future. Regardless of whatever some bum with no, Instagram or actual account says about me, like, I don't give a fuck. You're still a broke bum bitch. And I'm living my life, People always judge, they always talk shit. And that was something that I realized in the beginning of my modeling career, was that there was so much fucking hate. There was so much jealousy. There was so much irritableness from others. Instead of just seeing people happy and wanting to be by your side and giving you the best, advice, opportunities, I had to fight for a lot of that shit. I had to look for it myself. I really think a lot of, photographers in the beginning, Ryan Fallon, he was a great photographer. I don't know whatever ended up happening, because my previous ex decided to try to contact him and threaten him and some shit, because that's how psychotic he was. That ruined my relationship with that very first photographer who got me started, in my modeling and pretty much where I stand today. And, I really think every single person that I've had a photo shoot with, your experience is what allowed for me to be a better model. So leading up to the end of 2019 is when I ended up finding out that my previous ex had left to now Spain. And this is where I was really getting my modeling game up. I had a really good following and stuff like that. But he secretly went behind my back and went to Spain and flew out all these fucking bitches just because they had a big following, and I didn't have a very significant following at that time. But I wasn't allowed to go because I wasn't a high-end model yet and all that stuff. But even though I was supposed to be his girlfriend, but we all know why that ended up happening. So obviously at that juncture, our relationship was it was over in my eyes. I was like, that's it, I'm done. This is not for me anymore. How can I be with somebody that's 50 something and behaves in this manner, right? So when he got back, I was like, yo, this is over, bro. I'm getting a lawyer. We'll fix the monetary situation, all that stuff. He begged me to stay, right? Begged me to stay. Mind you, he was having a full-blown relationship, whole other life, living a double life. The guy lived a double life. And it's so gross and sad and pathetic. Because being so rich and prosperous, so unnecessary, But of course, the master manipulator was able to easily manipulate me by, pretty much coercing me in November into December, where he ended up buying me Sky. He bought Sky for me. He didn't pay full cash for Sky, of course, but he, put a little down payment and got me the car, right? And we had a discussion where this was something that, if things terminated, you would have to continue paying for it. And it was obviously something, it was a gift to me, but that was the first sign where couldn't have been any more obvious with respects to how fraudulent this person is, that they cover up their malfeasance with material things. So with such material things, you further coerce the person, thinking, oh, they love you so much, they would literally get you a Porsche, right? So I ended up, picking up that car on Christmas Eve in 2019. And he really went out of his way to get me that car. We first went to Broward Porsche. They couldn't get us the car that I wanted. So then I ended up, then going to Champion Porsche. We ordered the car that I wanted and I got it, right? Around my birthday, I had a party thing at the Satai where I had about 15 of my friends come, and he was there too, where he frauded all my friends, acting like he was my man and that he was such a good guy and all this stuff, whatever the fuck I did in my past did not apply in my current situation at all. For those of you saying all this garbage here in my comment live chat section, that because of what I did in my past, it affected what happened to me recently. And to clear that up, I had two relations where One was like a random one night hookup. So it wasn't 3 relationships I had at the same time. No, that's not the case. So whoever is purposely misinterpreting these things, you're just being deceptive. So I had 2 relations at the same time. One of them was obviously doing exactly what I was doing, so that didn't really count. So I really technically cheated on one person. So just want to clear that out, because that doesn't apply to why all the shit that happened to me in the last 12 months happened. So, you know, I also forgot to mention that when I came back in 2018 is when I started business school. Whatever. So for me, business school was very easy because you went to school like twice a week and shit, and like everything was online, even before the corona thing and all of that. So everything was like online, all that stuff. So during this time, I was in business school, you know, taking 4 classes and all that stuff. So that same day of my birthday in 2019, he met all my friends, all this stuff, acting like he's some great guy. You're an amazing guy, all that shit. Yeah. None of that. Because a few days later, he was on his way to Aspen with La India and her 2 kids. Like, crazy, bro. Crazy. But whatever, you know? January rolls around. So here comes 2020, January. Everything's going good, all this shit, whatever. The guy ends up getting me a wedding ring in January of 2020. A wedding ring. While the other bitch was like begging to have him marry her, because she's obviously at that age that's like, yo, like, what are you doing with the guy? He's not marrying you. Like, what are you doing? And he's having a whole other relationship. What are you going to do about it? But obviously at that specific time, she didn't know anything about that. Because obviously he had intentions on trying to marry me, you know? Little did I know that I was getting a wedding ring, but whatever. I just accepted it and I was like, oh, thanks. You know, whatever. Obviously to cover up another one of his mishaps, his misdeeds and all that stuff, you know? Valentine's Day rolls around 2020, and that was the breaking point where I was like, this is over now. He had a race. I had already been published twice by Playboy, and he went behind my back on Valentine's Day again. So 2 years in a row, he went behind my back and was spending that day with another woman, right? So at that juncture, I was like, this is over with. This is fucking over. Like, this is done now, bro. I was ready. I had the lawyers ready to go. You know what this guy did, bro? You know what the fraud did? He was like, oh my God, you deserve another car. And I was like, what the fuck? Are you crazy, guy, or something? So at that time, I still had Blueberry, which was my 2 Series BMW that the lease was up in March of 2020. So obviously I can't drive Sky on a daily basis because Sky is just like a very small car. So the fraud 90 days later forces me to get into another like financial obligation with getting a secondary car, had to insure the secondary car, right? So our agreement was that he was going to pay the monthly payments and I was going to pay the insurance on both cars, even though he's paying for everything technically. So I didn't ask for a secondary car. I didn't ask for a Porsche or 2 Porsches, 1 Porsche 2. No, he precisely forced me into getting these cars to then eventually attempt almost a year and a half later to put me on the verge of bankruptcy, literally. At that moment, I thought that things were so great between us. I was like, oh my God, this guy's so amazing. He's such a good guy and all this shit. And oh my God, little do I know what he was doing behind my back. So that's gonna lead me into going into part 2, because then it's like, what am I gonna have? Because the real cheese is gonna start right after that. So stay tuned for that. Part 2 coming later. Bye.